Dope, nobody's here to save him. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Nailed it. You crushed it. Dave, why aren't you just here, buddy? What's going on with you? I used to know you. Anyway, guys, welcome back. We're gonna do a community live stream this evening. My most recent article, which came out at the Libertarian Institute. What day was it? I guess yesterday? Is that when it came out? I think it was yesterday that it came out. It's on Jesse Jackson. You guys remember Jesse Jackson? We talked about him really briefly last night on the show. No, that's not Jesse Jackson. Actually, that's Jesse Jackson right there. So the article I wrote is called Jesse Jackson, Peace Abroad and War at Home. That's that's great, Aaron. I'm glad you said the intro for yourself, so you didn't. I didn't miss it. I'm still feeling dehydrated, just constantly for some reason. Yeah, I told the gang, look, if you want to just join the channel in Discord, you can do that. I can hit a button and it makes it so that the audience can hear you guys talking with me. But but I got to be quick on that button just in case certain characters join the channel. But let me tell you really quick kind of what my thought process was before we talk about this a little bit. Is when I saw that Jesse Jackson had died, and just really just writing in general, my biggest challenge is not the actual writing. It usually is not that hard for me to formulate what it is that I want to say, and then at that point it's kind of like I'd make a perfect propagandist, because it's like I know what I want to communicate, and then I go looking for the words to express my propaganda. And so I had my, and every great now and then there will be a topic where I kind of have my own kind of preconceived notion, my own bias, and which everyone does. That doesn't make what I write, somehow, negative, or unique in any way. Everyone has a bias. But at the same time, when I went into writing about Jesse Jackson, I'll admit I generally had a negative opinion of Jesse Jackson for reasons that we'll get into in a moment. But the idea for the article was kind of an A-B type thing. That is that, look, I don't want to be one of these people that writes clickbait stuff that is to just denigrate someone, like, oh, they just died, so let me, jump down their throat. That's ridiculous. But I'm also on the other side. I'm not rushing out my hot takes for someone that I like who just passed away. It's like, really, for the overwhelming majority of people, you actually don't need to feel the need to get your hot takes out every single time somebody passes away, especially if there's somebody you didn't know personally or particularly well, or have a really strong opinion of before that moment. Like, this is one of the beautiful things about social media is you'll see one of these influencer types that something will happen, so all of a sudden they've declared themselves an expert on the topic and they start writing about it literally that day. And you can search in like Twitter's search function, like this account and this topic. And when it comes up 0 hits, you're like, oh, so this is something you never have commented about once in your life. But now that something has happened or someone has died, all of a sudden you got to let everybody know your expert analysis. So I don't want to be that, but I also understand that's part of the game, right? Part of the game is always getting your takes out, writing things that are timely and interesting. If it bleeds, it leads, right? And I don't consider myself a journalist. I would never call my worst enemy a journalist. But I guess the more I write and the more I have things published, and I got to figure out what that makes me. I'm not sure. So when it came to Jesse Jackson, I feel like this is going to be a very A-B article of here's some things about him, but then on the other hand, here's some other things about him. Because I think if you're being fair, you can probably find some positive things to say about anyone, even your worst enemy. And vice versa, you can probably find some negative things to say about anyone, even your best friend. Maybe it says something about us that it's easier to find things you don't like about your best friend than things you do like about your worst enemy. I don't know. But with all that said, let's dig into this a little bit, and you can see right off the bat from the title of the article that with Jesse Jackson, I kind of broke it down into his own actions and his own thoughts as they pertained to foreign policy, and then his own thoughts and actions as they pertain to domestic policy. And that's where we get peace abroad, war at home. And we're all anti-war people here. So we'll tip our hat where it needs to be. When the Reverend Jesse Jackson, y'all need to come up with a title for me and I'll start using it. He was 84. when he died in Chicago, which is exactly where one would expect someone like a Jesse Jackson to be. The tributes were predictable, right? He was a protege of Martin Luther King, two-time presidential candidate. He was the most prominent civil rights leader for decades. Now, for better or worse, whatever your opinions on that are, those are just true statements. The Associated Press, of course, jammed out an obituary for him like 15 seconds after he died, which, by the way, that tells you these people have the shit written. If you're old, they've already written your obituary and they're waiting for you to die so that they can publish it. Just FYI. They talked about how he continued to speak out for the poor and underrepresented, and that he maintained a pretty busy schedule as far as public appearances go until his body started to fail him. His family referred to him as a, quote, servant leader whose crusades spanned voting rights, jobs, education, and healthcare. Now, at first blush, the narrative is obvious. The Rainbow Push founder who marched with King, championed the oppressed, and attempted to build a political rainbow coalition. But Jackson's life is not a simple morality play. Two separate themes defined his half-century in the public arena. On the one hand, a principled opposition to overseas war, but on the other, an equally stubborn devotion to hard-left domestic policies that turned the free market into an enemy. In death, the man deserves credit for his peace advocacy, but his domestic record cannot be ignored. Now, Jackson didn't just march against wars. He ran for president to reshape the party from within, the Democratic Party. Before his first bid, he helped add roughly 2 million black voters to the rolls, and then built the rainbow of activists, progressives, labor unions, minorities, anti-war groups, all backing him. He used this bloc to demand a people's platform that insisted on higher corporate taxes, single-payer health care, and wage controls. Ugh. Even some black leaders dismissed him as a fringe figure, but he leveraged that base and forced the Democratic Party to adjust delegate rules. And we're going to get into more that effect here in just a second. In 1984, the year before I was born, Jackson commanded about 18% of the primary vote. This is not someone, getting 1 or 2% and dropping out, and led more than 30 districts with heavy black majorities. His convention speech demanded fair districts and blasted second primaries, and he warned Democrats that black voters could win without the party, but that the party could not win without them. His first run proved he could translate protests into votes, but it also showed he would use electoral clout to push even bigger government. By 1988, more black politicians supported him, and the field lacked a clear frontrunner. He professionalized his campaign and broadened his base to farmers and rural whites. Strategists noted that with a divided white vote, he could win southern states with only 20 to 30% support. He actually did win primaries in 13 states, forcing Democrats to replace winner-take-all contests with proportional delegate allocation. Although party leaders ultimately backed Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis, Jackson's campaign showed how a multiracial coalition could compel concessions. His strategy would inspire future Democrats like Barack Obama and cement the identity-based alliance that today dominates the party. Now, whether you agree or disagree, it's just worth recognizing that kind of the identity political ethos that the Democratic Party runs on today was inspired by Jesse Jackson. And it's really important to emphasize that thing about the delegates. So in federal politics, when it comes to primary season in the presidential election, you have states with open primaries, which means you can vote for whoever. It doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with. If you want to vote for Republican, you want to vote for the Democrat primary, whatever, world's your oyster. And then you have closed primary states, which are, if you're a registered Democrat, you can only vote in the Democratic primary. If you're a registered Republican, you only vote in the Republican primary. And then when it comes time, you have states where they award the delegates based on who got what percentage of vote in that state, or states where they just award the delegates to whoever wins the state. Now, this is interesting, and it actually for folks in our audience that are Ron Paul fans, this might make you think of Ron Paul a little bit. There were a whole lot of shenanigans going on with the Republican National Committee in the way they were hoodooing things to prevent any momentum for a Ron Paul campaign. If Ron Paul was polling well in Iowa, they wanted to change the rules. If it looked like Ron Paul was going to win a straw poll, that straw poll got thrown out. They didn't want to use it anymore. If it looked like if you went to a caucus state and Ron Paul showed up with a lot of people to the caucus floor, they didn't want to have caucuses anymore. They just wanted to have direct votes. If a state was going to be or in this case, if a state was going to be a winner take all, and that state was going to have a vote split amongst several candidates, and someone like a Jesse Jackson with only like 20% of the vote was going to wind up having a more votes, then they didn't want that. They didn't want Jesse Jackson, because whether you like him or not, he also wasn't the preferred candidate of the Democratic establishment. In the same way that like someone like a Ron Paul was certainly not the preferred candidate of the Republic. Even a Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was obviously not the preferred candidate of the Democratic establishment. They wanted Hillary Clinton. And so they literally were changing rules to get around situations like this. Now, few civil rights leaders were as consistent in questioning U.S. intervention abroad. Let's talk about the anti-war side for a second. In the 1980s, Jackson helped revive the anti-war movement, urging a shift from military interventionism, nuclear brinkmanship, and Cold War posturing toward diplomacy and reductions in Pentagon spending. Can you imagine that? Actually, reductions in Pentagon spending? How quaint. Campaigning for the Democratic nomination in '84, he described the CIA's clandestine campaign against Nicaragua as a, quote, undeclared war against the people of Nicaragua that must be stopped. This was not fashionable rhetoric in the era of Ronald Reagan. This was a serious critique of covert wars being waged in the name of anti-communism. Jackson also put himself on the line for hostages. And this might be where we have our biggest tip of the cat to him, had to him. In 1990, as Saddam Hussein held American civilians in Iraq in the run-up to the Gulf War, Jackson asked diplomats how he could help. The U.S. charge in Baghdad later recalled that they told him to get the hostages released, and so Jackson traveled to Baghdad, met Iraqi officials, and returned with several freed hostages. He repeated such missions in Cuba, in Syria, seeing hostages released as a way to avoid escalation. When he met Yasser Arafat in 1979, he hoped to broker ties between the Palestine Liberation Organization and Washington. That was probably a pipe dream, but so much the better. Perhaps his most public anti-war moment came on the eve of the 2003 Iraq invasion. At a large Washington protest, Jackson told a crowd that we need a regime change in this country, and argued that a preemptive strike would cause the United States to lose all moral authority. He said killing innocent people to depose Saddam Hussein would be wrong. His anti-war rhetoric extended even to Israel. Ooh. In 1984, he endorsed a Palestinian state. He questioned U.S. military aid to Israel, arguing that Israeli weapons were used to maintain apartheid in South Africa. Those positions alienated pro-Israel interests, but they were part of a consistent, non-interventionist vision. Later in life, as Israel's war on Gaza has raged, Jackson appeared before the Chicago City Council to support a ceasefire resolution, a rare act for an aging civil rights leader. Whatever one thinks of his politics, Jackson deserves credit for consistently opposing unnecessary wars. In a country where presidents from both parties have embraced military adventurism, he insisted on dialogue over bombs, and he risked political capital to rescue hostages. Now that's a record worth honoring. You think about that for a second. It's so easy, and trust me, the rest of the article is going to be slightly less glowing in praise of Jesse Jackson than it has been thus far. But no matter what we think of him personally, and no matter what we think how bad his ideas would have been if implemented domestically, though they have been implemented just by other people, to the hostages that he was able to bring home from overseas, he was a hero. And he should be thought that way. Jackson's domestic agenda, however, reflected a very different ethical compass. In the 80s, he argued that the U.S. economy was rigged. Okay. And that only massive federal intervention could correct it. Had me in the first half. He pushed for government-run, single-payer health care, boasting that a national health care system would put, quote, medical spending decisions under federal control. He demanded a new federal investment bank financed with taxpayer-insured pension funds to direct capital to preferred projects. He advocated raising the minimum wage, imposing comparable worth regulations, and forcing equal pay across occupations. Few Democratic candidates dared to champion such sweeping central planning. In 1987, the New York Times described him as the most unabashed advocate of increased government spending. Again, so funny that we're talking about, this was when he was running his presidential campaigns, which was 84 and 88. Everything that he was advocating for has come true now. He was just having a mask off situation all the way, 40 years ago. 40 years ago. Ugh. In 1988, Jackson offered a detailed blueprint. He lamented that half of the new jobs paid less than $7,400 a year. Shit. And argued that welfare recipients had no incentive to work. His answer was not deregulation and tax relief, but bigger government. Raising the minimum wage, introducing, quote, family allowances to supplement earnings, and establishing a $5 to $10 billion federally funded child care program. Boy, if there's one thing that the government really loves, it's taking care of children. He urged doubling the federal education budget to about $40 billion annually and increasing teacher pay. Yes, that's just what we need. Give more money to the schools. For health care, he proposed a universal system guaranteeing cradle-to-the-grave coverage, with private institutions contracting with the government and the government essentially setting the rules. His tax proposals were equally radical. Jackson called for a $40 billion annual tax hike and higher corporate and personal income taxes on high earners. He supported tariffs. You guys didn't know that y'all elected Jesse Jackson twice, in 2016 and 2024. And penalties against multinational corporations that move productions overseas. Y'all did vote for Jesse Jackson twice. Explicitly opposing free trade. He wanted higher minimum wage, pay equity regulations, and large expansion of public employment. In short, his program resembled the economic platforms of European socialists, not the American tradition of limited government and individual enterprise. Free market economists criticize these plans for ignoring incentives and punishing productivity. Raising wages by government fiat reduces employment for the very workers the policy aims to help, while universal health care financed through higher taxes crowds out private investment. A government-run investment bank invites political misallocation of resources. Thank God we don't have that. And tariffs on overseas production amount to hidden taxes on American consumers. Jackson's policies would have replaced voluntary exchange with bureaucratic edicts and shifted wealth from those who earn it to those who lobby for it. Jackson did not merely advocate socialist policies. I told y'all the part of the article I wrote that was bad was way longer than the good. He sought to compel private firms to implement them. His tactic was corporate confrontation. In '82, as head of Operation Push, Jackson called for a boycott of Anheuser-Busch. He demanded that the brewer release detailed employment and financial records on black participation and insisted that black businessmen donate $500 to his campaign. It's like Biden saying that one guy, look, if you're not really black if you don't vote for me. Look, you're not really black if you don't donate $500 to my organization. All right, I'm gonna do that from now. Listen, y'all, I better start seeing my notifications popping up here. $500 from each of you, or you're not really white. So, let's get on it. Local newspapers accused him of threatening to stop trading with Budweiser unless the company met his demands. The boycott ended only after Anheuser-Busch reached an agreement with Jackson, raising questions about whether social justice or political leverage was the real objective. Dun, dun, dun. He sounds like a mafia boss. That's right, Lyle. This pattern repeated across industries. During the 1990s and early 2000s, Jackson targeted technology companies for lacking diversity. He would purchase a handful of shares, show up at a shareholder meetings, and denounce all white leadership teams. I'm going to buy one share of every company I can and start showing up to the shareholder meetings and denouncing them. After such, it's actually kind of funny, to be honest. After such protests, companies often ended up buying him off with donations and contracts. Jackson was accused. What do we got to do to get bought off? We're ready to sell out here. Let's get it done. Jackson was accused of exploiting corporate executives who feared being branded racist and described his activism as a shakedown. Whether one agrees with the tone, the observation that businesses responded by writing checks to Rainbow Push underscores the transactional nature of Jackson's activism. Jackson's pressure campaigns were not limited to corporate boardrooms. When he ran for president in '84 and '88, he used racial politics as a wedge. He described economic disparities as evidence of systemic racism and argued that only a rainbow coalition of minorities and liberal whites could fix them. Ugh. It's really just nothing worse than liberal whites. Get your It's Too Late merch or you're a racist. Critics said his rhetoric inflamed racial tensions and cast markets as oppressive instruments of white supremacy. Everyone who makes more than me is a white supremacist. A socialist like Jackson would never admit that markets are colorblind. They reward productivity, not race. By demanding racial quotas and government redistribution, Jackson undermined the principle of voluntary cooperation, and he turned politics into a zero-sum struggle. It's kind of interesting because I know that there's a lot of people out there that would argue that politics is a zero-sum struggle. And I'm aware, I'm conscious of that. You've got winners and losers. Of course, you have winners and losers in a system like ours where they've destroyed federalism. The whole idea of separation of powers, the whole idea of states' rights, the whole idea of the federal government not being the sovereign, that the people are the sovereign, then the states, and then the federal government, would be that it wouldn't be a zero-sum game. Just because you were the executive of this one piece of the structure does not mean that you win and we lose. Until it did. Perhaps the most damaging episode in Jackson's career was his handling of relations with American Jews. Y'all knew I wasn't going to write an article talking. All right. During his 1984 campaign, he referred privately to New York City. I don't know if I can say that. Y'all might have to just look up the article. He referred to New York City as a Jewish slur town, using a slur for Jews. When the remark became public, he first denied making it and then apologized, telling a synagogue audience that, quote, "It's human to err, divine to forgive." That's what I'm going to start telling everybody. When I accidentally let something slip, I'm going to... Don't you get mad, because if you do, I'm going to shout back at you, hey, to human is air, To forgive is divine. So, really I'm the victim here. Is what we're getting at. The apology was undercut by his refusal to repudiate Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. I don't know. Is that guy still alive? Is he still alive? I feel like he might have died. No, he's still alive. Jeez. This dude's 92 years old. Farrakhan's still alive. He's 92 years old, for God's sakes. Who had introduced him at a rally and later called Judaism a gutter religion. Jackson's camp. Look, guys, I'm just reporting in the article. This is not me saying this. That's what he said. And I'm recounting it. Jackson's campaign denounced the comment, but not him. The Jewish Telegraphic Agency noted that these actions created a lasting chill with American Jews who had been allies of the civil rights movement. I hope I don't have a lasting chill with any particular groups here on this program. Even some of Jackson's longtime allies expressed unease at what looked like self-serving activism. Business executives quietly complained that Rainbow Push's campaigns ended after they wrote checks. Economists pointed out that his economic proposals would entrench dependency rather than foster opportunity. And many civil rights veterans were uncomfortable with his closeness to Farrakhan and his willingness to blur lines between advocacy and extortion. It would be simplistic to dismiss Jesse Jackson as either hero or charlatan. His anti-war activism deserves recognition. He stood against imperialism when both parties embraced it. They still do. They used to. They still do, but they used to too. Risked his reputation to negotiate hostage releases, and pressed for diplomatic solution to conflicts. That record puts him in the company of those who believe that the United States should mind its own business abroad, a view that has since gained traction across the political spectrum. Not nowhere near enough. Damn. I don't know why I comment on the article as if I'm reading it for the first time. Y'all let me know if this works as a concept on the show. I'm trying to read the article as if I'm reading it as a reader for the first time and commenting on it, as if I didn't know that I wrote that slur in there. Yet his domestic agenda represented a war against the market, and by extension, the people who depend on it. Jackson's call for universal health care, massive tax increases, protectionist trade barriers, and racial quotas were rooted in a belief that government coercion can engineer fairness. Americans should reject that premise. Voluntary exchange and property rights are the surest paths to prosperity, and state interference breeds corruption, privilege, and division. Jackson's corporate shakedowns, nepotistic politics, and racial baiting illustrate those dangers. As America reflects on Jesse Jackson's life, it should embrace the part of his legacy that championed peace abroad. At the same time, it must learn from the failures of his war at home, the misguided belief that freedom can be purchased with other people's money. Such a good line. That corporate coercion yields injustice, and that identity politics is a substitute for individual rights. Rest in peace, and may future leaders pursue peace without waging war on liberty. Yeah. So, that was the article I wrote about Jesse Jackson. And like I said, the negatives, I wrote more about them than I did the positives. Thank you, Aaron. And I love that is in chat and not didn't get censored at all. That's fantastic. Okay. So yeah, let me know what you think about that, about this presentation, about the article. I feel like that I was more than fair. If I had to guess, I would say that most people that follow me and follow this program probably had a net negative opinion of Jesse Jackson. But I will be the first to admit, look, there are people who there were hostages in the Middle East, in a number of countries, and in South America that were brought home because of Jesse Jackson. And that matters. Now, he wanted to enslave a few hundred million of you to the government, but hey, glass houses and all that. I guess what disappoints me the most about him, in reflection of all of that, is that someone who can see the American empire for what it is and can see the death and destruction that it has wrought around the globe and the lives lost and the money spent, for that person to have that opinion on it, but then to think that government could be employed domestically for good, I just can't wrap my brain around it. I just, it's analogous to today. You think of MAGA types who, a couple of years ago were saying, oh, everything the Democrats do is lawfare. Trump is innocent. Russiagate's a hoax. They're just attacking him because they can't win at the ballot box. Deep state, we got to drain the swamp. The FBI, the CIA, it's all corrupt. We got to get rid of all this corruption. But those same people, when they have the keys to the car, suddenly don't recognize any of it. They can't seem to find anything unconstitutional going on because their guy is in office. It's so laughable because so much of that hasn't changed. So many of the same bureaucrats, it's the managerial class, the same people are in so many of the same positions as they were under Biden, as they were under Trump before, as they were under Obama, as they were under Bush. It's the same class of people. And those people are still controlling the wheels of power. And so for anyone to recognize that in the abstract and to think of it as being wrong, but then to think, oh, but if we just tinker with it this way, we can turn it all around. We can pour holy water on it. It can be blessed, and suddenly the corruption is washed away. And even though it's literally the same people pushing the same pencils, it can be used for good instead of evil. Now, that is certainly not what we believe, if I can dare speak for us as a community here on this program. But I think it's just hopelessly naive. That's the worst part of it. It's just hopelessly naive. So bravo for the anti-war instincts. But what a shame that you don't realize the same people passing those budgets, building those bombs, sending those planes, shooting those bullets, it's the same people hiking those taxes, running that education, printing those dollars. It's the same people. So, thank you, Eric. I see you over there on YouTube. So like I said, I feel like I was fair. I'm sure someone who's left of center thinks that I'm just a big racist, and I'm sure that there's people that are right of center that think I gave him too much credit, but I think that was fair. Mom, Alan is speaking for me again. Yeah, well, shut up, Geraldo. I think that's all I got. I mean, we've been on for 40 minutes. That's almost like an episode of It's Too Late. So I don't really have anything else unless there's some live viewer mail in chat that we want to answer. I don't really have anything else. Of course, remind everyone to get their tickets to the 8th annual It's Too Late live show. That's Saturday, May 16th at the Riverbend Ranch and Retreat here in Middle Tennessee. Yeah, send money. That's very good. Money, please. Yeah, we definitely need money. Y'all, I need to raise money to pay for this event. Otherwise, I won't be there. Like, I'll send them as everything I got, and then they'll let somebody know what the remaining balance is. And y'all can figure it out amongst yourselves, because I ain't coming. So we got to raise money to pay for this event. And there's people that have actually reserved space at the event that don't have their tickets yet. And you know who you are. So for the love of God, help a brother out. Buy your tickets. It's your way of RSVPing. It's going to be so much fun. There's Matt. There's our chef, Matt. How about Matt on this week's episode of It's Too Late? You guys, how about Matt? Yeah. There you go. Give Matt a round of applause for appearing on It's Too Late this week. How about that? So thankful to have Matt and Thomas on the show. It was a lot of fun. As I said Wednesday night as well. Anyone that has any ideas for some positive news, for good things that we can dedicate some time to talking about on the show, let me know. Let me know who I should reach out to and talk to, because talking about war and the economy and politics, boy, tell you what, it gets old. It gets old fast. I did that. Y'all, some of y'all are old enough to remember I did that for a few years, and then I stopped, and then I changed the name of the show. So we ain't looking to be doing all that. I guess I'll play this for myself. I'm seeing that all the notifications I have on X right now are because I talk some shit about the Heritage Foundation and then some music related stuff. Some people, so okay, yeah, somebody call Dave. See if Dave has a final thought. Here, I'll text him. Dave, do you have a final thought? Let's see if he gets back to me. We can talk about dinosaurs. Well, I said that if people had viewer mail questions, I'd answer them. The only thing I saw, yeah, and does Dave have a final thought? It's the only question I saw. So I texted him, we'll see. Well, there's also technically how could they is a question. I'll tell you how they could. It's because every single year, been doing this for 8 years, Brooke. Every single year there are people who, like, they've got plane tickets and a hotel reservation, but they don't buy an actual ticket from me for the event, which is my way to RSVP for, like, you know, food and drink and stuff until like the week of. They got their plane tickets like in March in their Airbnb in March, but they don't get a ticket from me until the week of. These people do this every single year. I think it's just spite. It's like, on the one hand, they're supporting the show barely, but on the other hand, they're doing it in the least constructive way possible. I don't know. Dave hasn't answered yet. We're not talking about dinosaurs, just FYI. I'm actually really proud of you guys for not jumping in the stream room on Discord and saying bad words. How's the guitar practice? It's all right. I mean, I could have just played a couple of songs before leaving, but it's too late now. You know, the thing is, it's like riding a bike. It is for me. I mean, it's not, don't get me wrong, if I'm practiced, then I'm in better shape to play, but it's like 90% like riding a bike. Are you ready? As in, are you ready to play the entire set of music that we're doing in May? No. We haven't even decided on the songs. It's going to be incredible if we even have a single rehearsal for more than 30 minutes before just doing it. It'll genuinely be miraculous, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it regardless. Is it bad when the accountability buddy is the one who types out the slur in chat? It's not good. I'm proud of myself for not saying any uh-oh words. And that's not even with Dave here to kind of keep me grounded. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back, and I guess see you guys next week, or on Discord if you want to hang out, but you know, next week.